Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Welcome back to the Happier and Healthier podcast. Today's guest is Stephanie Middleberg. She's an RD based in New York City, and she's the founder of Middleberg Nutrition, a health and wellness practice. She's also the best-selling author of The Big Book of Organic Baby Food, so I have a ton of questions on that we'll be getting to today. And she's just a sought-after health expert, so I'm really excited to share her insights as an RD with you guys. Thanks for being here, Stephanie.
Hi, it's so good to talk with you.
Yes.
This is so fun.
So we were connected a while back through Sakara,
yes,
the organic plant-based meal delivery. And our friend Sarah there was like, you guys have to meet. You have so much in common.
I know. And then it was instant connection.
Totally. So,
and I was so happy to meet you. That's what's so nice about this wellness community.
Right. There's just so many like-minded people. And I think we all have a similar mission. You know?
Yes, exactly.
So let's start off with, you're a registered dietitian, very well respected. You have your own private practice.
Yep.
What inspired you to become an RD?
So this is a second career for me. I did healthcare public relations for 3 years before that. And actually, I didn't know at that time, I didn't know any registered dietitians at all or nutritionists. I didn't really know it was a career path. But I remember looking at my boss and being like, I don't want to do what she's doing. And I was like, so I knew I had to get out of the profession. And growing up, I was an athlete, tomboy. I always gravitated towards reading a Self magazine and things like that. But I literally opened U.S. News World Report, top grad schools. And I was like, Berkeley, California, what do they have? And I was like, public health. What's public health? And then it just started my process. I was met with people in New York about various public health programs. And that's what I went into grad school for. So I took my GREs while I was working. And then NYU actually had a joint master's in public health and RD track. So I did that. But then while I was in school, my advisor was like, I think you want more of the one-on-one, the clinical side. So I think you should do more of the RD track and get your master's in science and clinical nutrition. And there, my mom had suddenly seen a nutrition for stomach issues. And I met with her and I'm like, oh, you're young and fun. This is a really cool thing. And I became an intern at a private practice. So my mom had seen this nutritionist for her. She had some stomach issues and she's like, why don't you come in and meet her? She's young and cool. And then we just hit it off. So I was able to have an internship at a private practice. And then instantly then I knew that's what I wanted to do. I really like being one-on-one with clients and being able to see and facilitate change. Also, at the same time, though, that this was happening, I did develop my own stomach issues, quote unquote, IBS, which is a big umbrella term for really means nothing but a sensitive stomach. So I was going to doctors left and right, and my mom had a benign tumor in her stomach, so she had a third of her stomach removed. So I was really understanding the science and the background behind it, but also frustrated that there sort of was no dietary answers. And they, some doctors give me a list of white foods to eat, super high fiber foods to eat, or just a laundry list of medication. So it was really the first time that I had to take my own nutrition into my hands. And now, which is great, it's become a subspecialty of mine. So I work with a lot of food allergies and gastro issues.
I think a lot of health professionals, or especially in the nutrition space, they all had their own issue that they had to deal with and that they weren't getting answers from necessarily like the mainstream way.
Yes.
And so,
Exactly. And I would say, almost probably 70% of clients in my day-to-day that I see have some form of like digestive issues. And it's not normal. And they just don't know where to turn to get answers.
Definitely. And I think, I talk about this all the time too. And I've had a couple gut health doctors or doctors that specialize in gut health on here. And I think we get so used to being bloated or gassy or constipated or whatever the case may be that we just think it's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the problem and I think a big part of, what we do is just educating people that, okay, no, that's actually not normal.
Yeah, yes.
And this is what it should be like. And, this is how you get there.
Yeah. And for me, it really takes, I'm a person who I needed like a coach to help me through that, like one-on-one to be very customized, because again, you can go online, but there's so much mixed information about anything. So it's not like here's one protocol that you do and you'll be cured. Everyone has different sensitivities and different things that work for them. So
Exactly.
That's why from my experience, I understand like needing that coach.
For sure, right? Because my food could be your poison and
Yes.
vice versa. So yeah, it is really important to get that individualized attention to help you really pinpoint what your needs are.
Yeah, and that's what I think a big message that I think a lot of people still need to get there.
Right, totally. So you recently had a baby.
Yes.
Just 10 weeks ago.
10 weeks, baby number 2. Wow. I'm like just coming out of the fog. It's like slowly. She's
sitting here. She's absolutely glowing. She looks like, she just came out of a magazine over here. And meanwhile, 10 weeks ago, she had a baby.
I'm not one who loves being pregnant. So like the post-pregnancy time is great for me. Not that I was super sick or anything, but I've been lucky that I've been feeling great. I've had a good recovery both times around.
Well, I would imagine it's not luck. It's more what you're eating and doing.
Yes.
So that's what I really want to focus and talk about.
Yes.
So for anyone who's thinking about having a baby or maybe sometime in the future wants it, what should they be thinking about in terms of nutrition?
Yeah. So I work, obviously, now that I'm a mama too, I work a lot in this space. So I have a lot of clients. I'm usually like their second call when they find out they're pregnant, which is amazing. So they come in. So first things first, even when women are thinking about it, it's a bunch of things. So you want to clean out their diet. So it's eliminating all of the artificial sweeteners and the diet foods and focusing more on whole foods for them. So quality is really important. So this is a time where I'm like more emphasis on going organic when you can, looking at the environmental working group, right? The Dirty Dozen, paying more attention to grass-fed, pasture-raised. So I want the quality to be really there. It's also making sure they're fortifying themselves appropriately too. So starting on some prenatals, and we can talk into like specifically which ones, because I think that's really important. I'm a big fan of, I have a few favorite brands, but I like whole food-based ones. Personally, I've done Mega Food and Rainbow Light, and I think they're like much easier to digest. You absorb it really well. You want to make sure your prenatal, which a lot of people don't know also has choline in it, because not all prenatals has choline in it, and that's becoming really, really important for brain health development. So choline is really important. Then a prenatal DHA is really important. I actually think even for me personally, I first did cod liver oil, which is a great source of omegas as well as vitamin D and vitamin A. And vitamin D, as we know, is so hard to get from food, right? And we're living in New York and we don't really have sun all year round. So I think cod liver oil, a good prenatal, probiotics are really, really important. And same throughout pregnancy. I have all my pregnant girls do it because more and more research is showing that taking a probiotic, not only helps your gut, but also helps prevent chronic diseases in terms of food allergies and eczema in the baby. So I think that's really, really important and helps you also absorb more nutrients. And then, so those would really be the main 3 that I have my clients start on.
So 2 questions out of that. So first off, sometimes I've heard people, so I definitely agree, obviously. I think we should be kind of eating that way, regardless, right? If you're a man or you're a woman, you're pregnant, not pregnant.
Exactly.
We should be eating that way.
But it's a time people come in and are like very committed to making changes.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
So I've actually heard people, though, once they're actually pregnant, and let's say they've been eating just a standard diet, have not really been caring about organic or healthy or whole food or anything.
Right.
And then they're scared to eat healthy because they think then their body's going to detox or something, and it's going to be bad for the baby if they stop eating processed foods and they start eating greens in the middle of their pregnancy.
Right, which is like mind-blowing. Which just shows like how much confusion there is actually out there, because when we bring it back to common sense nutrition, like vegetables and fruits and these healthy food items are where you're going to get all your vitamins and minerals from. So there's absolutely zero harm to the baby, right? For that, or to yourself for consuming all these good for you foods.
Yes. Okay, good. So it's out there. So let it be known.
Yes.
It's okay to start.
Yes.
It's okay to start eating healthy at any point.
Do it, because also here's what happens. You crave what you eat, right? So like the earlier you can start eating fruits and vegetables or the healthy food, the more you actually crave it. So the problem with the processed foods is like that will carry through the pregnancy and post-pregnancy. And that's part of the reasons why so many women don't feel well during the pregnancy and after.
Interesting. So can we talk a little bit about the cravings during pregnancy?
Yeah.
Like, where are those coming from? Why do we get them? How do we deal with them?
Yeah. It is really interesting, these cravings. I find, well, for me personally, I had more aversions than I did intense cravings. And I think the more people you talk to, the more, a lot of women feel the same way. And I think the reason is looking at why you're having the craving. So is it because you really, same thing, like you're just not eating properly? Are you not eating? Our blood sugar really dips. You get highs and lows when you're pregnant. So are you going too long without eating and then suddenly you're having this crash and you want all these sweets? Are you eating more salty foods like in the beginning if pregnancy, when you're nauseous? A lot of women tend to crave more crunchy, salty foods. And will that carry through, right, in the second and third trimester when you start to feel better? Are you overly tired? Are you not fortifying yourself well enough? So I think there's a lot of combinations that we have to look at when girls come in and I want to look at their diet to see what's going on. Of course, there's some hormonal changes going through it, but really, really, actually, I was a little more lenient on my pregnant clients before I became pregnant because I was like, totally, like, you're going to feel sick, just get through. But now I'm like, no. You have to force yourself a little bit. So I'm talking like in the beginning, even if I understand if you're a little nauseous, but like one of the things I think is really important is the protein, very good quality protein, because oftentimes the nausea is just low blood sugar. It can be many things. Sometimes for me, it was also acid reflux. So when I had the nausea, I was having ginger ale and things that were actually making me feel worse. But having even the protein, especially at night, is going to be so important to how you feel in the morning. So even if it's like 2 bites of, like if you're a vegetarian, getting the plant-based, the beans, but if not, some like grass-fed ground meat, just 2 bites really will help that first thing in the morning. And then just a few bites of vegetables, even if it's like, I find cucumbers are easy to digest or handle for pregnant women, because it just gets you slowly like coming out of that space.
So I'm curious, as like a healthy eater, what were your cravings or aversions while you were pregnant?
I could not handle coconut at all. It's like the smell, I couldn't have it in the apartment. I couldn't have it in the office. Anything coconut was off limits, which, I mean, it sort of, for me, brought me back to my childhood eating. I hated coconut growing up, so it was interesting. I actually was a very picky eater growing up. And it was like my Friday night meal, my husband joked, I wanted roasted chicken with roasted white potatoes, ketchup, and broccoli. Like every Friday night is what I wanted. Goji berries was another big craving, and coconut ice cream.
Oh, interesting.
Is what I wanted.
You had the coconut ice cream, but you didn't want the coconut.
Yes. Isn't that weird? That is like, because the coconut ice cream to me doesn't really, it was just like.
It's just ice cream.
It's just ice cream. Yeah. It just tastes like dairy-free ice cream.
Right.
But because I am lactose intolerant, so it like gave me that fix. Although when you're pregnant, sort of the craving for the cheese was strong, and I felt that I could digest it a little bit better when I'm not pregnant.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
so now that, the baby's born and everything, do you feel like you're back to normal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, it's amazing. As soon as it happens, like completely back to normal. The other thing actually I was craving was citrus. I couldn't get enough. And that's like your body wants some vitamin C and the immune support, especially for me, I always find it interesting, the women who are pregnant during the winter, what their cravings are versus the summer. But I just could not. I would have 2 to 3 oranges in a day.
It's so interesting. I feel like our body is just so smart, and we're just never going to fully understand it and why it does what it does. But we are really, at the mercy of the seasons and at the mercy of our body, right? Yes. Because it will crave things, I feel like, when we need it, and it will not want things when we don't need it.
100%. And the amazing thing also with being pregnant, and a lot of women feel this way, is like you stop when you're full. I was always pretty good about portion control, but you just have such little space that you're just like, I cannot literally put any more food into this body because my stomach is smushed.
Yeah. Do you feel like that carries over to after the baby's?
No, I wish, right? Now I'm like, I'm full, but this is delicious, so I'm going to keep eating. Yeah. But it does take you back to like really listening to your body at that point, because you have no choice.
Right. Totally. So just to back it up, one trend that I've seen is that a lot of times women who are not even thinking about getting pregnant anytime soon will take prenatal vitamins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? For, they'll take it for their hair, skin, nails.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I would say like I'm fine with it because, most of them don't have dangerous levels. And with women, they've been on the pill for so long. So what happens is actually it depletes your B12, your folate, and a lot of essential nutrients that we actually need, which is just sort of counterintuitive, right? So a lot of women actually need to be fortified more. And in this day and age, in a perfect world, even if we have a great diet, it's still hard to meet our needs just because the soil isn't rich as it could be. Again, our guts, we're not absorbing food as much just because of environmental factors. So, to get that added boost is not bad, is really not bad. And, some people do well with some a la carte nutrition, but, which I'm supportive, but vitamins and minerals, they all work together and support each other. So like, for example, for bone health, women used to just take calcium, but we know we need vitamin D and vitamin K and magnesium to all work together. So that's why these prenatals are nice, because it does support all of that.
Right. It's kind of like a little insurance policy.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, like in this day and age, more people are deficient. But with that, I do say, make sure you do keep up going to your doctor to get blood work.
For sure.
Done.
Just to make sure
that none of the levels are too high.
Iron would be one.
Yeah, right? Vitamin D, which is rare, but it could be one right, that you'd want to look out for to make sure it's not too high. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious, still talking pre-pregnancy here. Does what your husband or your partner is eating, does that matter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not something like you would say the male needs a separate healthy diet than the female healthy diet, but they need to fortify themselves to have.
They can't be eating junk food and laughing at you.
No, absolutely not. So it is really, really important. And there's a lot of male infertility as well. So it's both the partner's job to eat really wholesome, healthy food. And
do you feel like or have you seen in certain cases of when people are having trouble, does food make any difference on that?
Yeah. It really, really does. I think it's a whole lifestyle approach with it. Personally, actually, I did IVF for my son, and then for my daughter, it was natural, which is very common as well. But I mean, one of the main things for a fertility diet is to make sure that you're really going full fat with everything, which for a lot of moms to be and new moms, it's still, even for us, we're in the know of it, but I think for a lot of people, it's still really hard.
I know people are so scared of fat.
Yes.
It's kind of, I still have to tell actually my best friend, I still have to convince her that it's okay to eat an avocado.
Right.
I'm like, no, it's not bad fat. Like, you need fat.
Right. It's so like, oh, but avocados I shouldn't eat because it's fattening. And it's like, no. Right. It's like fat fuels metabolism, and you need this, right, to absorb nutrients. You need it for brain health. You need it for cholesterol. You need it for hormone production. And that's what a lot of women don't understand. You actually need these fats for hormone production. So that's what's really key. So that's also a big, big thing. So go full fat with everything, full fat dairy, have the yolks, add butter to your diet, coconut, whatever it is for you. So that's a big one, because you do want to make sure you're also absorbing the nutrients, right? In addition to ingesting them. Add olive oil to your vegetables. That's really important, right? You don't need them steamed. You need to be able to absorb the nutrition from them. And then I am a big believer in bone broth as well. So again, that is filled with all of these vitamins and minerals, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, calcium, as well as it's everything that's good for the gut, chondroitin and glucosamine. So that's another.
Do you make your own bone broth, or do you buy it?
Personally, I buy it. Okay. But you could do either. You could do whatever you want. But I'm a big fan of here New York Fresh Direct, and I get Brodo.
Totally. I can't Brodo. Yeah, I was going to ask you where.
Yeah.
So Brodo makes it fresh in New York City.
Yes.
Because I can't imagine standing over a pot for 2 days with bones in it.
No. Not, yeah, exactly. I mean, yes. So the goal is you do want to get grass-fed bones, right? And the whole point is that you're cooking it for a really long time, right? Like at least 24 hours, 72 hours. So all the nutrients leach from the bones. It's filled with collagen, all this good stuff. And I love implementing. I mean, personally, I love just sipping on it, or you could use it a base and just put some vegetables and chicken or beans in it. So it's really easy to incorporate.
And if someone doesn't live, for example, near Brodo, and can get it delivered fresh, do you recommend like the frozen?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like Thrive Market has a bunch, but there's a lot of now grass-fed frozen collagens that you could, or bone broth that you can get.
Yeah. And could we just talk about organics for a second? Because
Yes.
I know you'd mentioned that earlier, that being one of the main things that's really important when you're thinking about getting pregnant and really in general. So I know for me, it's very clear that organic is the way.
Yeah.
But I know that there still is, you know, just like with fats, there is this a little bit of hesitation around like, is organic really better? Maybe are there a couple like really good reasons why, like particularly when you're pregnant, you want to be choosing organic?
Yeah. So I think first it is sort of known that, okay, when you're eating organic in terms of like the pesticides, it's over 30% reduction in pesticides consumption. So when we talk about having a healthy baby, I mean, that's really important, right? Because they're getting what we're getting. Really, really, really. And so their systems, their digestive system, their brains and everything are really affected by it. And now there's 1 out of 4 kids have some form of chronic condition with asthma, autism, allergies, eczema. I mean, my son even ironically has had eczema and food allergies, right? And I was like pretty careful, had a healthy diet. So it's just the environment is changing so fast more than our DNA, and we see it so much in the health of our kids. So it's definitely an area I'm super passionate about. So so you have a lower level of pesticides, but also more and more studies are now coming out that actually organic foods have more nutrition in them, which is great. So especially when we're talking about meat, it has 50% more omegas in it. So you really are fortifying yourself more. So the quality really, really is superior. Having said that, I also am like, don't want you not to have an apple because it's conventional, not organic, right? So that's not the point. You know, I sort of like gone down that road where like, okay, you're going to get something baggaged because, you know, you're afraid that you're eating a non-organic like berry, so to speak. Right.
So like choosing chips over an apple. Yeah.
Right. So like have perspective on it. And I also say control the controllables, right? So like when I'm out to eat and, you know, something isn't organic, it doesn't upset me, right? It's just really when I'm personally buying the food and preparing the food, I know that I'm going to do whatever I can to support that. And especially I buy organic foods that I know my family eats a ton of, right? So like, again, if my son eats an apple a day, I'm going to make sure that those are going to be organic the best I can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the environmental working group, their list, like the Dirty Dozen list, that's also a good way. You know, you don't necessarily need, like in an ideal world, yes, everything would be organic, but in the real world, that doesn't always happen. So using like, what you eat all the time, or the environmental working group has a list called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 that will tell you these are the foods that have the highest levels of pesticides or the most toxic. Those you probably want to buy organic. The rest, you know, it's up to you.
Right, exactly. And the 2018 list just came out, and hot peppers was like an added 13. It was...
Yeah, I know. They're like on the plus list.
Yeah.
And I eat so many hot peppers.
Do you?
I do. And, you know, it's actually hard to find them. And Whole Foods never has organic hot peppers, but Fairway does.
Really?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
And so, and I'm like, oh, they're so small though, you know, and I'm only eating like a small, you know.
But, yes.
But that's the thing, you know, with pesticides and chemicals and toxin exposure is that, you know, it's dose dependent, right? So if you're eating a little bit over a long period of time,
exactly,
it adds up.
It adds up. One also thing that I find when you're looking at labels of produce to know if it's organic, it starts with the number 9.
Right.
So I feel like that's always, if it's not like labeled well in the supermarket, that's always where you can take a look.
Yeah.
To have some vision for it. And you know, the organics, I mean, it's just amazing because it's such a growing field right now, right? So it's not like it's a trend that's going away, and you can find it. I mean, every like Walmart, Costco, like you can find it so much more. It's not just Whole Foods you have to go to, and it's having to become much more affordable,
for sure,
which is great.
Yeah, I mean, you can find organic pretty much everywhere nowadays. Even in like the corner store, they have organic stuff.
Yeah. And so the best way, it's still not a perfect industry, right? But the best way to look is for the seal USDA organic, because then you know it's going to be 100% organic.
Right. Yeah. It's that third party verification that this is
the stamp of approval there.
Yeah. So, all right. So pre-pregnancy and during pregnancy, we're eating organic and whole foods, real foods to limit our toxin exposure and just boost our nutrition.
High fat probiotics, but also you can get it through fermented foods. So fermented vegetables is another way you can get it. You can get it through you could get it through dairy and kefir, and then you can get it through some kombucha as well. But for my pregnant women, I only recommend it 2 to 3 times a week.
And why is that, curiously?
Because some of the alcohol is so minimal, but there is a little bit of it. And some people the bacteria actually can like lead to yeast infections for some women. So it's sort of like, don't do this every day.
Right. There's so many nuances.
There's so many. I mean, it's amazing with nutrition because you can find a pro and a con for every food, including kale.
Right. For sure.
So it's sort of like you just have to take the information and like, have common sense with it. But that's also where I feel like don't eat one food every day. I sort of have like rotate a rule of 3. So if you're having something after every 3 days, rotate something else in there.
Right.
Just because you don't know.
Yeah, that's what I kind of tell people. And like in terms of vegetables, like thinking in terms of color. So like if you're eating your greens, don't eat kale every day. Have spinach, have arugula, have this, that, and just rotate.
Exactly. That's the key. And magnesium is another one that I think is really important. Another vitamin mineral. So many women are deficient in it. So it's a muscle relaxant. So it's good helps relieve stress. It helps relieve. So I have natural calm in my office, and people see this like, ooh, anti-stress. You can operate machinery, but you do want to take it at night because you do feel relaxed from it. It helps you go to the bathroom. So for women who have constipation at any point, but especially during pregnancy, this is a nice natural way to help ease the constipation. And also for women who have cramping during pregnancy, it's good to help, like, again, release the muscles there. So magnesium you can also get from pumpkin seeds and chocolate, which is the way I think I consume a lot of magnesium.
Right. I think we all do.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in my circle of friends is magnesium deficient.
Yeah.
With the amount of chocolate that we eat.
Half a bar a day, no problem. But pumpkin seeds seeds are a big winner for a lot of women throughout the stages there.
And so any other, you mentioned the magnesium, but any other things that we should be thinking about or tips like during pregnancy that will be really helpful?
Or
foods.
Yeah. So iron is another one. I actually, this time around, a lot of women, it shows in their second trimester is when they become anemic. And second trimester is the point where actually you feel like you should be having all this energy. So you're like, why am I so tired? And it's like, check your iron. You could be really depleted in it. So actually there's 2 things that I took. I took Megafood has like a blood builder iron, but it also has beetroot in it because beet helps like the absorption of iron and B12. So again, because a lot of people are B12 deficient in general, especially for those that are vegetarians, right? The iron in the B12 is something that you should probably take in addition. And that helped so much. And that is where also like if you do eat meat, having red meat more often does really make a difference. And it's good to pair it with some vitamin C to help with the absorption there. So like, again, like tomatoes, right? Or tomato sauce will help with it. And then also what you could do is that I took to help for liver pills. Ron Pullman's, they had like ultra pure. It doesn't taste like liver. It doesn't taste like anything, but it does provide liver is so nutritious.
Right.
So it is something that it sounds like to get down, but you would never know what you were taking.
It's just a pill.
It's just a pill. Again, I'm not a pill pusher, but your body does have these intense these needs. This is your time in your life and post too, right? Like your body still takes a while to recover. And there's a lot of information about the first like 1,000 days especially for like a baby's health, but that's from like conception to 2 years. So if you think about that, like even for a woman from like preconception, but even you're recovering from when the baby is 2 years after.
Wow.
As well.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. So we had a healthy, let's say we ate really healthy.
Yeah.
We had a healthy pregnancy.
with some indulgences, right?
And so we just had the baby.
Yeah.
So what now? Like what changes now for you, or is the diet still pretty much the same?
The diet is pretty much the same. So because keeping up with the supplement regimen, right, for sure, especially if you're continuing to breastfeed. And the thing with breastfeeding is that like the recommendation was when you're pregnant, you need an extra 300 calories, which is nothing. But when you're breastfeeding, it's more like 500 calories. So it's almost like I think it's depending on like the size of your baby and how much they're like eating, but you're running at least like 5 miles a day. So I know with my son who was an eater, I just felt so like depleted and I felt myself like being dehydrated by the end of a feeding session. I just was starving all the time. So it's really, really important is like, I know so many women want to get back into shape very quickly, but you have to make sure that you're actually eating adequately especially if you plan to breastfeed to keep up the milk supply. That's number one. The hydration throughout, though, is actually really important. So one thing for pregnant women, because your blood volume does increase. So you really want to make sure that you're drinking a lot more water than you did previously, because it does prevent preterm labor and preeclampsia. So that's going to be very important. And especially post, that's going to be very important. And, what happens is suddenly, you're pregnant and all your focus is on you. And then this baby comes and you're up all hours of the day, you're just you find yourself grabbing and not really paying attention to structure. So I think that becomes the biggest challenge for so many women is to use whatever sources you have to really make sure that you're keeping up with your meals and your snacks. And your snacks, look at the snacks as, because you are so hungry, look at your snacks as a function of mini meals, right? So it could still be a snack could be a salad. It could be a lentil soup. It could be yogurt with hemp seeds and cacao nibs, something that's it could be a smoothie with, almond butter, something that's definitely more substantial than what you think you would eat previously. You just can't get away with. Then you're going to end up having 5 mini snacks and not feeling well at all. Again, here in New York, we have some services that we can get that can help provide with the nutrition. But then also just, the one day of meal prepping is really key there, chopping up the vegetables, or even buying the vegetables pre-chop, and just meal planning is just going to be so important at this stage. You can't beat it. So just every day, knowing what you're going to have and just stock up for it. Even if it's Wednesday night is pizza night, but fine, just at least you know what it is.
Right.
Right. So this is, again, even though you're in so much of a fog, but try and meal plan with your partner.
Yeah, meal planning, I feel like it's something sometimes people dread to do,
yeah.
but it's really so helpful, and it's really not that hard. You just sit down, figure out what meals you want, what you're eating home for the week.
Exactly.
Write it down, and it becomes so simple. Once you kind of get into it, I think people then really get hooked to it. It's just that getting into the...
Even my husband jokes, we still, I have the book of the Big Book of Organic Baby Food, which the meals are meant to be for families and kids, right? So my philosophy is you don't need to be doing kid food, right? You all should be eating the same thing. And it's 250 recipes, and we still have in turn. I'm what are we eating today?
Right.
We need inspiration. And my husband's he's Stephanie, we need to meal plan. And I resisted at times, but it is such a lifesaver when you actually do it. And it's what I do with my clients, because I know you it's so hard to I think in our busy lives to think to sit down for 10 minutes to actually do it. There's so many other things you'd rather do. But I have them open up their calendar and we look and we jot everything down, and it is pretty simple. It's okay to have certain recipes in rotation, right? I talk about, it's a weeknight shuffle. So if Monday night's Mexican night, right, or taco night, Tuesday night's burger night, Wednesday night's stir fry night, whatever it is, I feel that also helps give people direction.
Right. And I feel once you have that direction, you feel so much better.
Exactly.
There's so much anxiety about choosing what to eat.
So much anxiety. I think that's the biggest thing for people, right?
So having the plan and
and
having a book. So let's talk about your book, actually, The Big Book of Organic Baby Food.
Yes.
So I think one complaint I hear all the time is that how do you get your kids to eat healthy? And your philosophy is you don't have to make adult food and kid food, but I explain that a little bit more.
Yeah.
And what should we be doing? Okay, we just had the baby. How do we set it up so that our kid is a healthy eater?
So it actually starts in the womb, because they're getting exposed to what you're eating then. So at that point, that's another argument for have the broccoli, right? Because you want them to be able to taste the flavor of it, but also have interesting flavors, right? Have Thai food, have Indian food, have Mexican food, have turmeric and ginger, just so it's their first exposure there. So not to just eat bland food at that point. And then same thing with breastfeeding, right? They're getting your nutrition too. So even though we're advised, because of potential colic or gas, to limit spicy foods, I understand the intense spiciness, be careful of, but there's no reason why you shouldn't. You should have a bland diet and limit certain vegetables and things like that, especially, if your baby's fine. Around 1 month is when peak acid reflux happens for the child. So just know that that's actually normal, and then it should taper off like that, But I think so many women, in the advice that I got to was just eat bland. But I would fight that.
That's interesting because I wonder how it would be in a country like Thailand or
Exactly.
India, right? Where they're
Right.
eating, that's normal for them.
That's
That's not even
normal.
spicy.
100%. So like make it your normal too, which is starting that early, right? So your system is also used to that as well. And then around 6 months is like the exciting time to start to intro solids there. And that's what I encourage the herbs and spices very early on too. So like if you're making sweet potatoes, you could add some ginger to it. You could add some cinnamon to it. So don't be afraid to have these intense flavors. My son used to love this like rutabaga leek spinach puree that you're just like, I sort of would taste it and you're like, oh, this is a little intense. But he just like loved the flavor of it. So like leeks, as I said, like turmeric, right? Like all this stuff you can add pretty early and just get their palate used to it. And it's not going to say they're going to be perfect eaters, but it definitely sets them up to craving more and being open to more different foods. One also thing is a lot of pediatricians recommend starting off as the first food rice cereal because it's not an allergen, because it's fortified with iron, but it's the blandest food you could eat and it has no nutrition in it. And even the iron you're getting is not absorbable iron, right? So yeah.
What's the point?
So it's exactly, there's no point of it. So I really am like adamant, do not start with the rice cereal. You can start with veggies. I started with avocado, and then iron does deplete around 6 months for the baby. And they can have meat very early on because their body can digest it and they need that iron. So it's interesting that it's sort of like a little backwards philosophy there.
Yeah. Just backtracking 1 second, in terms of breastfeeding,
yes,
because I feel like now people know the benefits, like they're more aware than they have been in previous years.
Yeah.
But what is your recommendation? How long should someone be breastfeeding?
Yeah, I mean, I always say do the best you can with it because it's actually so much harder for women than I think a lot of women realize. And I think the recommendation is exclusive for at least 6 months from, the American Academy of Pediatrics. And then you start once you intro to try and still breastfeed for the first year of their life. But what my biggest recommendation for anyone who's pregnant is to actually take a lactation class before the birth. A lot of people are like, do it after, or feel like they'll get help once they're in the hospital. But I feel like it's like that first feeding when you're in the hospital, like they latch on to you right when you have the baby. They throw the baby on your chest, depending, what your birthing situation is. And if you're having trouble latching on very early on, I mean, that just like really hurts your confidence and it could spiral from there. So the best thing that I did was I took a lactation class and I brought my husband because they want to help, So it's sort of a lonely thing in the beginning. Like you shouldn't have to do it yourself. So my husband was like, be like, okay, yeah, you're latching appropriately. And in my class, what was so great, they brought in a new mom and she fed in front of us. So we saw what a bad latch was. So I really like, if you're not going to a class, Google it, but know what you're doing before that first experience happens because there are more issues with it than you think. And I was very lucky that my friends were very open about it with their struggles about how hard it can be.
That's such a great tip.
Yeah.
And I do feel though that, a few years ago when one of my really good friends, like she was kind of in our circle of friends, she was the first one to have a baby. And after she had the baby, she's like, you guys, there's so many things they do not tell you about pregnancy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And people are like, why don't they tell you this? No, really. And, same reason people don't talk about their fertility struggles, but like all this stuff that happens after, not necessarily like information you readily receive. So that's my like biggest tip is to, get that class going before that happens. So if you can, 6 months, but I also feel like you don't want to create a stressful feeding situation, right? I mean, the main goal is for your baby to be relaxed and be well fed. And that's really important. And also, I mean, so if you can get to 6, and I say take it to increments, right? So I'm sort of like, I'm almost at 3 months. Yes. And the breastfeeding it's not necessarily the toughest part. It's the pumping when you're away, right? There's like a lot of other sort of like baggage that comes with it. So if I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to go away, for a weekend, like I have to pump and then I have to store all my milk, right? So there's the other stuff that goes along with it. But if you get to the first 6 months exclusively, I think that's a phenomenal goal for many women. And that's another reason why you have to eat certain lactogenic foods, I think help. The hydration really helps. But think about like oats, think about nuts, think about ground flax, wheat germ. This all can help some milk production. Some people do teas, but it's really, if you really are eating a healthy diet and fortifying yourself with real whole foods, that's going to be very helpful. Because think about it, you don't want skim milk for your baby. They will be cranky. They won't grow adequately. You want to give them full fat milk, and that means that you're going to be eating these rich foods as well.
Right. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
So, okay, so back to the book.
Yes.
Are you making all your baby food? Tell us tell us about the book, what's in the book. And then I'm curious, like in your life, are you making all your baby food? Are you buying it?
It was interesting. I got very lucky. So I was making organic baby food when the publishers approached me to do this type of book. And I was like, right on. I'm so supportive of it. And I feel like it's very different when you have your first baby. You have two hands, like, they're resting. You can cook. And I think looking back, though, I wanted to also write this book because I do think it's very overwhelming. Even like myself as a nutritionist, I was like petrified to like give the first bites, right? Because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is such a big deal. So it's also like a guide of like how to do it and like what you need as well. So, and I'm also very lucky that my husband likes to be in the kitchen. So he's an equal partner with it. But just as you go, you realize how easy it is to make baby food. It's so easy because you're just essentially, there's two philosophies, right? There's the purees and then there's the baby-led weaning, which is just having them eat like whole mushy foods, but they're reaching for their hands. It's not purees. I did a combination of both. I felt like my son was so hungry that it's like when you see them try and reach the foods, it's like they're not getting anything in their mouth. But whichever route you go, I think you again, you're either just like steaming or roasting the vegetables, right? And then pureeing it and adding these spices and adding the fats, which are important for them, for their continued brain development, which is really important. But no, after that, I sort of joke we then would like put our food in glass bottles and take it with us, and this time around, I'm sort of like, I have a toddler, like the juggle, there's like, it's totally unrealistic to cook my own food. I think then at that time, like 2.5 years ago, the baby food, the jarred baby food, there weren't many options out there. And it was so bland. Like once you made your own and tried these, like my son wouldn't eat it because it had just no taste because it would sit on the shelf for so long. Like that's the biggest thing, like make your own pureed carrot, right? Versus like trying the store-bought. It's like, it's a game changer there. But now there's so many companies that it's like such a great space. So one that I'm actually a nutrition advisor for, which we're talking about, is Little Spoons, where they're doing more organic blends that have interesting flavors and textures and foods. So I definitely this time plan to have a full freezer of that. And that's gets delivered to your door, frozen, and stay in your refrigerator. So it's a different type of shelf life. So it's much more fresher and introduces your baby to much more diverse foods and aren't as sweet. So a lot of the problem is so many of the baby foods on the shelves are just all fruit-based. And if they have vegetables, it's like the fourth ingredient, and it's really more like they're getting sugar. So I think a big thing is like try and get the vegetables in as early as possible to develop more of a savory palate. But again, I'm actually now, as my son turned like 18 months, I was like, oh my God, he's opinionated. He's not just eating anything I'm like putting him in front of him. He's running around. The time to cook is so much tougher, right? Especially like I'm running back and forth from the office. So I wanted to write my second book, which is focused on toddlers. So it's like helps with meal planning, helps with strategies for picky eating. All the recipes in the book, it's going to be 150, are going to be all under 30 minutes, which is really helpful. There's a lot of slow cooker recipes because that's what we've turned to a ton. I do at least 2 slow cooker recipes like a week. And that I do recommend that because you just put all the food in the morning and then you come home at night and it's all done.
It's such a lifesaver and time saver.
Right? It's like, it's such a game changer. And there's so many things you can do with that. So, and then we included lots of recipes that you can make in advance and freeze, right? Or like make ahead even for breakfast, right? I think, again, to me, that's so important. And foods that you're all going to be able to eat together. So that's why I was like, it becomes a lot harder as like you go through the different stages. So my next book is sort of growing as my son grows and is like, I don't have all the time in the world to cook. Yeah. And I definitely need to use some tricks and strategies and outdoor companies to help.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of convenience too.
Yeah.
I just think there's different levels of it,
yeah.
right? So,
absolutely. The healthy convenience is there's nothing wrong with it. And I think as moms, we feel a little bit of like a failure if we're not like cooking ourselves, 24/7. But again, it's like part of me wants to be enjoying my life like with my kids, not always just like in the kitchen.
Definitely. Right. And it's 2018. So we have all of these amazing companies that are now offering better stuff. You might have to look a little bit longer or harder to find it, but they're popping up everywhere. They're popping up
everywhere. Even like, per city, like local ones right in your town versus ones that you can just purchase online. There's a lot coming out the gate, which is wonderful, because I think for so long there's been so much focus on like, food as medicine for adults, but now we really know that we're looking at that for kids. So we want to do whatever we can to provide them with like a good jump start for health for the future for them.
Yeah, and if we start them off healthy, we're never going to have to worry about when they're 10 years old and trying to get them to eat greens at this point. Right. And then it's not going to happen.
Right. Again, it also requires so much patience, right? Because like one food suddenly that my son would eat every day, he's suddenly like, oh, yuck, I don't want this, and like throws it on the floor and you're like, oh my gosh. But I just tell parents like patience, keep trying, keep putting new foods out there. Right? Don't make a big deal of it. Mealtime should not be stressful, just like we don't want it to be stressful. Like put it on their plate, a small amount. If they choose to have it, great. If they don't, then don't make a thing of it, because it will become a thing. Right?
And then they just won't do it because you want them 100%. To do it.
Yeah. You think about it at that age, like everyone is telling them what to do. So this is like the thing that they feel like they can like control. Right. And your job is to control what's on their plate. Remember, their job is to control how much they're eating. Yes.
That's a great tip. So just kind of like put it there for them. If they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. Don't stress them out.
They won't starve. It's unlike adults. So we sort of look at like what we're eating in the day. Kids are like, look at what they're eating in the week, right? So like my son will have like a massive like 6-ounce like fillet of salmon, right, one day, and then like barely touch his meal the next, right? So, but it all balances out. So we have to trust them that they, have such a great internal cue of what's going on for them.
Right. Any other tips for like, let's say your kids are a little older, maybe they're, 10 or in their teens, and, you haven't traditionally eaten healthy, but now you want to try and
cook with them, start to do little things or bring them to, that's like the biggest thing, right? Is just to get them involved in food in a non-threatening, stressful way. Is I find that so helpful. So at any stages, they love doing it. And if you're not doing them, like have them cook with someone else. Bring them to the farmer's market so they get to see what's out there. They can talk to some farmers, or you can even say at any stage, okay, like choose something you want to try, right? And so whether they're like eating it at the farmer's market or bringing it home to work with, I think that's a big thing. Also, modeling is so important. So many like, I have so many parents who are like picky eaters themselves who like won't eat beets, but like want their kids to. And that's really hard. Like they need to see that you're also eating it as well. So that's why the family meals are also important, right? So I know my son is always like, Mom, what you eating? Like, Mom, you have your food. Julian has his food. So they like to see that you're, what you're eating, and they're curious about it, and, that you are eating similar things as well. Their books to read is going to be really important too. And there's activities that you could do not at the dinner table, right? So like you're doing this like off on the side. So just any way to pique their curiosity is going to be really helpful at that stage. And then like if you can bring them to a farm, anything along.
Oh, that's a great idea too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, there's lots of like little things that you could
just get them interested and invested
100%. And like little things like you can make it fun. Like you can put like displaying. It's okay if you want to like go all like Etsy and Pinterest and make a heart of something, right? Or put things in muffin tins. So it's like appealing to them. I always say just keep it like the things you want them to eat, keep it out open, like on your kitchen table or something, because little thing, I'm amazed. Like one day I kept kale chips out and my son like ran up and just like had a few kale chips. I was like, whoa, well, that was good.
Right. Make it easily accessible.
Easily accessible for them to reach it and see it. And as I said, just keep trying. It could literally take up to 25 exposures for like a kid to want something, and trying to avoid saying like, you don't like this, right? So you don't want to label it like that. So one thing is that we say like, this is food you love. This is a food that you potentially like. And this is a food that you're growing to like. So it's a lot has to do with like the language that we do.
It's so interesting how language really shapes our reality.
100%.
So it is important, not just with that, but I think in general for us to be really careful with our words.
Yes, really, really careful.
And that's a good reminder, though, that it could take 25 exposures, because I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, we try to give it to them twice and they're like, no. So we're like, oh, no, that they just don't like it and they're not going to eat it.
Exactly.
But
and we dismiss it, right? That they don't, and we even say it out loud.
Right. And then that reinforces it.
Yes.
So we just have to be really persistent is what you're saying. And just not give up, not get frustrated.
Yes.
Just like, okay, they don't want it today, fine.
Right.
And I think maybe even trying it different ways, right? Like if you, I don't know, give them broccoli, steamed broccoli. They don't want that. Maybe, I don't know, put it in like a little veggie burger or...
Exactly. That's the same thing. That's a misconception. They feel like you have to eat it like whole in one form, but like, no, that's it.
Sneak it in somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want them to know like that they're actually are having it. So like a good place is smoothies, right? So like my son loves his green smoothie and I'm like, there's spinach in there and he can actually taste it, right? Or he knows that at least he's eating it. But like broccoli could be broccoli chips, like, you know, any form, you know.
Broccoli rice.
Yeah. Any form that they know that it's there and then they like is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
That is a good distinction, though. Is, you know, I did say sneak it in.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, of course, there's going to be that too, right? So you're going to be like fortifying wherever you can. But the point is you want them to know. Yeah.
For sure.
And that they can actually like taste it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But there's a combination of that. Are you kidding? Like any place that I could like...
Throw in some.
And I'm just like, that's probably how, I feel good about it.
That's probably how the trend of like a cauliflower smoothie,
you know,
because I personally find them disgusting. I can't eat it, but you know.
But like, they don't know.
Right.
They don't know. Well, it's another thing funny with the cod liver oil because it actually is a really good supplement for little kids. Probiotics is very important to start them early on as well, especially if your kid came through C-section or needed to be on an antibiotic, or you as a mom need to be put on an antibiotic and was breastfeeding. So I want the kids to take their own infant probiotics, and they're also going to take vitamin D as well. But the cod liver oil, you know, we taste it as adults and but like my son would be like, "Yay, I want my cod liver oil." They don't, you know, it's just one of those things like it's a blank palette that you just set them up for. And he was so excited to do that. And same thing with fermented vegetables. Like he would drink the juice of like sauerkraut and think it was delicious. So start all those little things early, right? And it just becomes part of their repertoire and you hope that it sticks.
So one last question that I like to ask everyone, and this doesn't have to be, I know we're talking about pregnancy and kids and everything.
Yeah.
But sort of in general, if you could give people just one tip or one piece of advice for them to live a happier and healthier life, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. I like to say, don't let the perfect interfere with the good. So, and it's a lesson. It's amazing. It's a lesson I learned. I did an outward bound trip. And you could take it in so many levels, right? I mean, the obvious level is like so many people are trying to eat perfectly that they say screw it when they're not being perfect, right? So it's like, no, eating healthily or choosing a good choice is still really great, and don't fault yourself for that. So there's a little bit of a black and white approach there. So that's my number one. Don't let the perfect interfere with the good. But I learned it after college. I did an outward bound trip. And that was like backpacking and kayaking. And we were going down a big rapid. So each one of us had to take turns like leading the group down this like rapid. And I was like, took it so seriously. I was like, went ahead and I was like studying it. And the girl in front of me just like didn't do any of that. And we went down and she was laughing the whole time. Like we practically flipped over, but everyone was having the best time. And I'm just like, wow, I'm like missing out on fun because I'm trying to do something so perfect, you know? And it's something that has stayed with me throughout my entire life. I tried to bring that back. It's way more fun not to be perfect.
That's such a great reminder because I think it is, especially in a place like New York where a lot of type A people, everything is black and white.
Yes.
And it has to be the best and it has to be perfect.
Yes. And we're so hard on ourselves for it.
Right.
So the good is really great if you can achieve that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for advice. And
you're welcome.
Everything you shared today. And where can people find you?
Middlebergnutrition.com. So you can find out about the practice. So I have a chef and 4 amazing dietitians. We do everything from food allergies, weight loss. I have a pediatric specialist. We do cooking classes, meal planning, whatever you want. And then personally, we at Middleberg Nutrition for Instagram, and then at @SMiddlebergRD on Instagram as well.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, thank you again.
Thanks. So good talking with you.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed and got value from this episode, I'd be so grateful if you can take just 1 minute to leave an honest review on iTunes, as that will help us reach more people and get incredible guests on the show. To say thank you, email a screenshot of your review to info@mariamarlowe.com and we'll send you a free 3-day healthy eating sugar detox meal plan. After each and every episode, I encourage you to come say hi on Instagram at Maria Marlowe, that's MariaMarlowe, or in the private Happier and Healthier podcast group on Facebook. In both of these places, we can continue the conversation about today's episode, so come and share what you think. If you want more, you can also head to mariamarlowe.com, where you'll find tons of healthy recipes, meal plans, and resources to help you live your healthiest and happiest life. Lastly, if there's someone you know who'd enjoy this podcast, make their day, and mine, and send it to them now. Until next time, don't forget, health and happiness are a choice. Our thoughts become our reality, so make sure you're thinking up a masterpiece.